Hi, Ellen. Thank you so much for joining me.
Sure, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, excited to hear your story.
Oh, well, I am happy to share it and happy to share things that I learned from it and whatever you want me to talk about. So it was a long time ago, and so I have the luxury of having had 35, 40 years of integration. Some people say it takes 10, 15 years. I say it takes 35, 40 years of integration. Because it totally changes your perspective about everything. But so uh, I was riding down the road. I had returned some videos to the video store, and I was driving down the road, and two-lane road, somebody coming up the other way. There was a light there. It was green. There was a road that crossed at an angle. And just as we entered the intersection, this car started to veer over into my lane. And I don't know if he was just coming into my lane by mistake or if he decided he was going to turn down that road or whatever. All I knew was he was coming straight at me and I was going to hit him, and I knew I was going to hit him, and I knew I couldn't stop. And the next thing I knew, I was looking down at the top of my car. And I was very fortunate because I had read all this metaphysical stuff. And so it did take a minute. I was disoriented and I had to figure out, what am I looking at? And when I realized I was seeing my car and the car that hit me, and I saw the other guy get out of the car and walk over to my car, and I thought, wow, I'm out of my body. This is really cool. Because I could like see in every direction, and I could see everything that was going on, and I had no pain. I did not feel any impact. I could see that, it looked kind of like, the front of my car was pushed into my front seat. And I knew that my body was still in the car, but I wasn't. I. It's like, wow, okay. So if I can be not in my body and still be me, what does that make my body? And what does that make me? And I started feeling this whole expansiveness, as if I had been, held in a tight container my whole life. And then all of a sudden I was let go. And I just sort of expanded, like I seeped out in every direction in this great way. And there was this like feeling of freedom and whoo, okay, yeah. Now I'm like, this is good. And realizing how much more I am than what was in my body. And so about that time I thought, well, there ought to be a tunnel of light or something around here. And as soon as I thought that, I like heard it come in. I heard it and I felt it sort of come in from the right side, and kind of in a whoosh. But the feeling of it was this this love, this joy, this, it's a vibration that's so high that when I touch back into it, like now, I tend to get giddy. So I will now be laughing at inappropriate times because because it makes me giddy because it's so high. So I started to feel this. It's like an excitement. It's like an exhilaration. It's like, it's love. It's bliss. It's joy. And it had the refreshing feel of like on a really hot day when you're at the beach and you jump into the water, and it's just so refreshing and cooling, and that you were out there sweating before, and now it's like you're new again, you know. And that was kind of the feeling that as I went into this tunnel, and it pulled me. It had a magnetic pull to it, and I didn't want to, you know, oppose it, mind you, but I didn't have to do anything to move through this tunnel. And the feeling got stronger and stronger and stronger. And so I got to the end of the tunnel, and it was this whiteness. And I could see in every direction, but there wasn't a whole lot of visual to see. And but I was just basking in this feeling, again, of like using the ocean, that, you know, when the ocean comes up on the sand and it kind of leaves some water in little pockets in the sand and then retreats. I felt like I had been the water in one of those little pockets, you know, my whole life, just stranded in this hostile environment. And suddenly I was back where I belonged. It's like, oh my God, it came back and got me. You know, the wave came back and grabbed me and pulled me back into the ocean again. And it was just this stunning feeling of, it was a recognition of being where I belong, being back to being part of what I'm made of, and validation that, no, Ellyn, you never belonged in that place where you were. You know, that, you know, that was alien territory. You know, you thought it was, and you were right. And because this is where you belong. This is where we all belong. And noticing just the difference. It's like, how did we go from here to that? And so I kind of, you know, just basked and reveled in that for a while, and just felt this amazing, the love and the bliss and the acceptance. I felt like everything about me was accepted and fine and wonderful. You know, after having grown up in a world that tells you basically that everything about you is wrong, you know, and you need to conform, and you need to look this way, and you need to act that way, and gee, I wish you wouldn't laugh that way, it's not ladylike, and you know, all the things that are wrong with you. And here's this environment where it's like everything about you is just so absolutely wonderful. And I'm like, yeah, I could stay here forever. In fact, I think that's going to be my plan. So I heard this commotion, and I looked over, and it looked like there were like 50 to 100 people over in this crowd. And of course, the first person I saw was my adoptive mother. And four sets of two sets of grandparents. They were all gone. Yes, they were all gone. Yes. So they were there, and a couple of aunts and uncles, and a whole bunch of other people that I vaguely recognized, but I was focused on like the immediate family first. And they were like, oh my God, you know, we're so happy to see you. And it reminded me of the prodigal son story. It's like I came home and they had a party. They were all just so excited to see me. I had been gone on this journey. I had gone far away, and now I was back, and it wasn't that they were just happy. I mean, they were thrilled. They were just excited beyond belief that I was there, and telling me how wonderful I was. And they had watched me, and they thought, you know, I did such a good job. And in my head, I'm going, okay, I'm 35 years old. I haven't gotten married. I haven't had kids. I haven't gotten to the kind of job I really want. I haven't accomplished anything in life. I'm overweight, and I can't seem to lose weight. I can't, I just can't accomplish anything. So how could you be proud of me? And, all this self-judgment, that kind of I learned from everybody around me. And they were like, oh, you don't get it. It's just like, we know, we were there. Being on earth is really hard. And especially for, a sensitive soul. And you didn't have it easy. But you got up every single day and you tried. And even when things were going bad for you, you were kind to other people. And I'm thinking, oh no, I was a sarcastic bitch, pardon my language. But it's like, oh no, I felt so bad about myself that I used sarcasm to just cut people down to the quick, because that made me feel, better about myself, and showed how witty and sophisticated and sharp and, whatever, and cool I was, And, I would just stand there with a drink in one hand and a cigarette in the other hand and just make pithy comments about people. And it's like, no, and I don't think I was that kind when I look back at it. And they said, but you tried to be kind, and you tried to be compassionate. You tried not to judge other people really. And those things that you did were defense mechanisms and basically cries for help. And I'm like, gee, I thought I was being cool. But so it was it was weird, because they're telling me all this. And in my head, I'm going through all the self-judgment, but I really wanted to believe them. And so that was kind of good. It's like, okay, I'll accept that. And, maybe I can come to terms with that at some point. So then I saw these other people. It was a man and his parents. And I knew immediately who they were. But I didn't know how I knew them, because I'd never met them in this life. And it was my biological father and his parents. And I knew them immediately. And it was like, oh my God, why didn't I get to meet you when I was alive? This is crazy. How can you be here? How can I know you? And then I realized that, like, my adoptive mother and grandparents knew him and his parents, and they were like all old friends. And I thought, well, this is kind of weird, because I don't think my parents knew anything about, the birth family. And they were just sort of laughing and looking at me with this really pointed way, like, okay, she's going to get it in a minute. It's just, hold on, she's going to get it. And it was like, oh my God, you guys planned all this, didn't you? But not on Earth. And they said, no, we planned it here, and you planned it here. And we agreed to participate. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I read about how we create our lives, and we have this blueprint and this plan for our lives, but, it never kind of made complete sense to me, because, of course, why would anybody create a blueprint that would provide any struggling or pain or disharmony at all? Why would anybody do that? It's like, we're not masochists. And they said, well, your conscious mind would never do that, but your soul wanted to learn things and experience things. So, your soul decides that it wants to experience. And I'm like, I'll take it up with my soul in a minute. We're going to have words. So that kind of blew my mind, because I had read the Seth material and all of that stuff, that, you create your own reality. And I would be like, I can't possibly be creating this. This is terrible. Why would I do it? And here was this whole other dimension to it. And I couldn't argue with it, because here they all were. And it was like, they've known each other for infinity, what kind of like, why wasn't I clued in on this game, And So about that time, I also started realizing that this environment of white was kind of getting to me, because we're used to depth and contours and colors and movement. And I thought, I really wished it kind of looked like a place. And as soon as I thought that, it just kind of went like this. Like, I guess like with the Wizard of Oz, when suddenly it goes from black and white to color. And there was this park in front of me, and they were all still standing there, and this park and beautiful green grass and trees and flowers and birds and animals, and I saw all of these like cats and dogs running around, and I realized that, you know, a couple of them were pets that I had had, and a dog was one of the dogs we had had. And I'm like, oh my God, they're all here, you know. So they came over and, went up, rubbed up against me and purred and, got pets and rolled on the grass and everything. And then they saw a squirrel, and off they went. And so it was like, oh my God, they're young, they're like kitteny, and they're running around, they're having a ball. That was great. And the colors were colors that we don't have here, because it's like colors that we have on steroids. And everything was just vibrantly alive. I mean, I felt like if I laid down on the grass, I could have a long conversation, and the grass would be able to tell me things. So I realized that I finished greeting everybody, and I realized that I felt like I was supposed to talk to somebody else. So I all of a sudden, there's this like pathway down through these trees. And so I said, oh, I'll see y'all later, and started walking down this path, and, stopped to talk to some of the flowers and the trees, and it greeted me like they knew me. And I crossed over a little stream and came through the woods a little bit and out into this clearing where there was kind of a slope. And at the top of the slope was this kind of a gazebo type building. The kind with, it has a floor and columns and like a ceiling, but no sides. And I could see that there were people moving around in there. So I thought, well, I guess those are the people I'm supposed to go see. So I go in there, and there's like 12 of them, and they're really tall. Like 12 to 15 feet. I mean, really tall. And so I was like, but I didn't feel intimidated by them, because again, they just oozed this love and this acceptance and this excitement that I was there, and this joy and this humor. They just were humorous, and just standing next to them, you just wanted to laugh over nothing. And so we started talking, and I said, this is really great, and I'm so glad that I'm here. But you have to tell me what all that back there was about, because living on planet Earth is pretty nasty. And it's, there's like no progress, and everybody has their own little box that they're in, and do not deviate from the box, and everybody has their role to play. And, if you're a male, you have to do these things. If you're a female, you have to do these things. And, it's like, to tell you the truth, I'm not sure I ever wanted kids, because my childhood was not all that happy, and I got criticized a lot, fairly harshly. And I got a stepmother when I was 15 who didn't particularly care for me. And it's like, I don't know that I want to put a child through that. I don't know that I'm grown up enough to raise a child in the right way. So I never really wanted kids. And, of course, people were like, how can you not want to have kids? It's like as if every single woman wants that. It's like, it's not cookie cutter, really, when you look at it. We're all different. And so I said, I just don't understand. And they said, okay, well, let's start with how it all began. So they show me these pictures of the dawn of time and the progress of humanity and all of this other stuff. And, I'm seeing these pictures from the Middle Ages, and I'm like, yeah, well, I guess we have come a long way, but it took us long enough. And then I start realizing that I'm in the picture in different time periods, in different roles, in different genders. And, starting about there was Lemuria, then there was Atlantis, then there was Egypt, then the Holy Land, all of those different places. There I was. It's like, God, this is like, where's Waldo? It's like I'm everywhere. It's like, I must really love this awful place because somehow I keep going back. And they, it's like, and they did it with humor. And it was sort of like, so are you starting to see the picture now? And I'm like, well, yeah, I'm starting to see that in that life, I didn't learn anything about, X, Y, or Z. And in this life, I really flubbed it up, and it's probably lucky I died young. And this one, I was so different that they stoned me to death. And over here, it was like, wow, why would I keep going back to that place? And people are just mean. And they said, well, for a couple of reasons. It's like your soul wanted to experience everything there is to experience. Period. Everything. Good, bad, ugly, everything. And I said, yeah, looks like I've done that pretty much. And they said, and also you as a soul also have always had an interest in helping humanity grow and helping humanity raise its vibration so that it can get out of the muck and into the golden age that you're supposed to be having. That you've tried, humanity has tried several times and come really close, but then something goes wrong and you blew it, And it's like, yeah, but couldn't I just give up on those people now? It's like, I haven't been effective so far, so why should, I don't want to go back. So they showed me where we were going. And the golden age and what it's going to be like and how it's going to be wonderful. And it's what it's what we all yearn for. I mean, on one hand, we yearn for home, where I was at that moment, but we also yearn for life on Earth to be a better reflection of that. And yet somehow we can't manage to do it. And I said, well, I think I've tried, quite a number of times from the look of it, And, I was poor. I was wealthy beyond my wildest dreams. I was, I was I was the scullery maid that used to have to be on her hands and knees in the middle of winter, like scrubbing the front steps, I did all of that stuff. I was wealthy and used my money for not such great things. I was wealthy and I used my money for good things to help people. I was an activist and a protester. I think I worked with the suffragettes. I did all this stuff. I know I was in the resistance in World War II, and it's like, well, I've done a lot. I was a Knight Templar several times. I really enjoyed that. And but it's like, it feels to me like I've done everything, and I feel fulfilled, but and I'm not going back. It's like, I'm here now, and I'm not going back, and you can't make me. And they had downloaded all of this information, and part of it was, download is really the wrong word, but it's the only thing I can come up with. It's like it was always in me. I always knew it all, but it wasn't accessible. And so they'd show me stuff and tell me stuff, and I go, oh yeah, I remember that. And I said, I just assume, be here and watch how humanity, grows in the future. And they said, that's fine. You don't have to go back, because you've kind of done what you wanted to do. And I did forget about the one thing. It's like, well, I said, why would I have created such a difficult life for myself? Being the essential abandonment. And people will argue it was not an abandonment, but to the child, it was an abandonment of the birth mother, given away to strangers. My adoptive mother dies. I get a stepmother who pretty much rejects me, but tolerates me. And a father who seemed to think I was from another planet that was just wrong. And just rejection and abandonment and rejection and abandonment and lack of validation my whole life, over and over and over and over again. And I said, why? You have to tell me, why would I have done that to myself? And they said, well, because this time you wanted to master self-love, and you had tried in life after life after life. And they said, granted, it's not an easy one, but you wanted to do things in this life that you would not be able to do unless you accomplished that, unless you mastered it. And I'm like, why wouldn't I just put myself in a family where, they told me, I could accomplish anything I wanted, that I was wonderful and smart and I could do all these things. And they said, because then you'd spend your life looking for that from outside yourself. But when you're not getting it from anybody in your life, the only way you're going to get it is if you find it inside. And if you think back, you will be able to identify the moment that the spark of self-love really ignited in you. And suddenly it was like this moment when I was like 16, and my father was like berating me for something and telling me I was this, that, and the other thing. And in my head, I was going, that's just not true. I am a good person. I'm generous. I'm kind. I try to be kind. I'm a good person. I'm not all those things that you're accusing me of. And they said at that moment, to be able, at that age, the parents are like God. And, it's like, here's God telling me I'm all this horrible stuff. And I'm saying, no, God, you're wrong. It's like, that was the moment. And they said, you've been fanning the flames of that, to get it really like burning in your heart, for the whole time after that. And so that was what you wanted to master in this life. And you have done it, and you do not have to go back. And I'm like, okay, good. So I'm not going back, and you can't make me. And then they said, and this is all like in my head, we're not talking through our mouths or anything. They said, let us show you what you can accomplish if you do go back. And then I woke up in the emergency room and I started to swear. Because I was like, no. I didn't, I knew that they showed me something. I changed my mind. I woke up and I couldn't remember what they showed me or why I changed my mind. And it's like, you have got to be friggin' kidding me. And it really, well, I mean, the nurse is like, you were in a car accident, dear. That's why you're here. It's like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. So yeah, so that was my NDE. And I spent about 5 to 7 years clinically depressed afterwards, because what I realize now was just my general resistance to being back on planet Earth. It's like, no, no. And I think somehow I thought that if I just denied it enough and resisted it enough, somehow it would go away. Of course, it didn't. I just got deeper and deeper into depression. And finally, it was like, oh, just snap out of it. It's not going to work, you know? But so then I had to go through this whole, well, and I started doing it before that, but this whole integration process of, now I have all this new information that's concrete, not just from books. And it made, a lot of the stuff that I read made sense, and some of it not so much, but this whole new perspective on what life is and why we're here, and how we're supposed to conduct ourselves while we're here. And, recognizing that all these different parts of my life do not fit with that. The sarcasm, for example, it's like, oh my God, that's like the most hostile act, short of actually like stabbing somebody. That's just hostile, and it's mean and it's hurtful. And I didn't realize that because I was so busy trying to protect myself from being hurt. And that's horrible. But it was like a 35-year-old habit. I grew up with people who were sarcastic. When I was growing up, that's what the comedians did. It was all sarcasm. It was all humor at somebody else's expense.
Yeah.
And I was the queen because I was psychic, and I was intelligent, and I had a good vocabulary, and I could just, I could cut somebody down so fast and not even realize it. And that was the part. I didn't realize it. If people laughed, I felt like I had, oh, they think I'm cool. I had no concept of what it did to the other person. So I had to kind of like retrain my whole personality, which is really hard. And, I tell people, you have to train your mind and focus only on the good stuff and only on the things that you want, because you are creating in every second with every thought. Every word that comes out of your mouth is creating something. And are you going to be like, oh, woe is me, life is hard, everything's awful? It's like, that's what you're creating as soon as you do that. So, bring your mind around and use some discipline. You start to think those thoughts, bring it right back and say, no, but this over here, even if there's only one thing, this one thing in my life is really good, and I'm so grateful for it. And you just focus on that. When people say, that's so hard, I can't do that. It's like, try restructuring your entire personality. And I started losing friends, and they was like, you're just not interested in anything anymore. And it's like, well, none of the stuff you're interested in. It's like, I don't care who's playing football. I watch people at football games, and I think this is why we have so much violence in the world, because it's all, there's a winner and a loser. And, either way, you hate the other side with everything you've got, It's like, what is that? Why did we create that? And people love it. I mean, there are whole states that the statewide pastime is football. And it's like, crap, we're never going to get these people out of this stuff. But But that's what I had to do. I realized that the job I was in was kind of like sucking my spirit out of me. And so I knew I had to leave. And then it took me 2 years working as a temporary, which is a horrible thing. I mean, I met great people, and it was a good opportunity in a lot of ways, but I'm a Taurus and I need stability and security. So working as a temp and not knowing where you're going to go to work every Monday is something that does not sit well with me. So it didn't work well for me. But I learned a lot. And so I was also realizing that, the things that we judge as bad in our lives are often the best things that happen to us, but we're so busy resisting and we're so busy judging it as negative that we're not seeing what the situation can teach us. And so that was another thing. But those are the kinds of things that you do through integration, and it's like the onion. You're peeling away layers of what used to be, what you used to believe, what you used to think, what you used to do, how you used to act, who you used to hang out with, where you used to work. And those layers come off. And the new layer is not necessarily right there to plop back on. I mean, sometimes you go into that limbo place where the new thing, you've let go of the old, the new thing is not there, and you're like, oh God, maybe I made a terrible mistake and this is never going to work, but it always does. And so I learned a lot about that. I learned a lot about, life stages. You don't have to have an NDE to go through a lot of these things. When someone graduates from high school and goes to college, that's like a whole new world, whole new thing. You don't know who you are on the first day of college. You're like, oh, and that's the way I felt. It's like I'm in this whole new world and I have to feel my way through. And, people who have children who grow up and leave the house and they become empty nesters, it's like, well, who am I now? And I have come to believe that the best question any person can ask at any given moment is, who am I now? Because we change, or we're supposed to be changing. And now, that I can just keep yakking because I have the gift of gab. So if you have any questions,
I have a few questions.
I'll pause for breath so that you can get a word in.
Well, I was going to say that you are very good at articulating what happened, because I can see myself there almost. And so thank you for that, because I think a lot of questions that people have on their mind is, how can people on the other side actually see you? I mean, how can they, like they'll tell you, yeah, we've been watching you, but how do they watch you? And if you're able to see everywhere,
they're just here. We can't see them because they're at a higher vibration.
Yeah,
but they can see us because we're at a lower vibration.
Yeah.
So, hi.
Somebody said
they watch us when we go to the bathroom. I said, yeah, but they're not really interested. They don't care.
Yeah, that's the question, because wherever you go, there you are, and there they are.
Exactly.
So
I find it comforting.
Nothing is a secret. Yeah. Okay. So did you find out why you were adopted specifically, or was that part of that life review, or part of that to find the self-love?
That was it. Because that was like the initial abandonment and the being different and not fitting in and setting up that whole scenario. And I think for other reasons, I also wanted to experience what that was like. It's never a punishment, because we just want to experience something, because there you don't feel pain.
Yeah.
there, it's just, oh, that might be interesting. And I often say it's kind of like going to summer camp. That, you go, you think, oh, this will be fun. And you sign up for, basket weaving and archery and canoeing and all of this other stuff. And then you get to camp and, the other kids don't like you and the counselors are mean and they don't pick you for the team. And you get thrown out of the canoe and you get bit by a snake and you get all this stuff. Well, you didn't say I'm going to go to camp and have all this crap happen to me. You go, I'm going to go to camp and I'm going to learn all this stuff, and I'm going to have a great time with all these other people. It's like, yeah, not so much,
Well, I've noticed that like we only grow through painful experiences. For whatever reason, humanity has to suffer before we realize this is painful, I need to change.
And around the year 2000, I suddenly came up with these two questions for growth and for people changing. And I don't know whether I came up with it or my guides gave it to me or what, but how bad does it have to get? And how long will it take? And I've been testing that theory, for 24 years, and it's pretty true. You're right. It's like, is it bad enough for you to change yet? No. We want some more suffering. Okay. It's like, real, how bad does it have to get? It's like, don't tell me because I don't want to know, because you have tolerances for suffering that I do not. And
it's so true. It's a question I've often asked my clients. I have a lot of ladies who've been in toxic relationships. And I'll say to them, when was that moment that you decided to leave? And for everybody, I don't think it was even something they planned. There was one lady who said she found photographs of children on her husband's phone. And that was the line. He could beat her up. He could do whatever. She stayed. And it's so interesting because maybe it's just kind of that you think it crosses a boundary that you cannot even understand. Or
right.
Yeah. Or that you never thought of.
Exactly. Alternatively, if you've been on a growth pattern, when you step into a higher level of self-love, suddenly a lot of that stuff that was that you tolerated before, suddenly it's like, oh no, we can't have this,
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me, how did you restructure or reintegrate then? Because you had to change your entire personality, and with that, I'm assuming the way you see your past as well as the way you see yourself in the world growing up. Is it just self-inquiry? Because if you're losing your friends and everything, you're kind of left on your own, I'm assuming, to deal with it. Or did you have help?
Oh, yes. Well, I had a lot of help. So I went to therapy for the depression, and which was kind of difficult. I mean, I loved my therapist, but, she didn't know anything about near-death experiences, and she probably thought I was crazy or something, But she tried to help me, and she was really good. And I think she helped me in a lot of ways. But, when we ask for help, the universe always provides. Sometimes in ways we don't recognize, but it always provides. And I had read the Seth material from the 70s. And even back then I had said, I would love to find somebody who channels like that, like Jane Roberts, and go to classes that are channeled. It's like, eliminate the middleman. I just want it straight from the beings. And about 6 weeks after I got back to my office after my NDE, I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was lucky. I had a couple of friends who were into the same thing, so I could say I had one of those near-death experiences. Oh my God. And she, they didn't think I was crazy. But so one of them said, I have this temp work in my office, and she knows this woman who channels. And I'm like, oh, where? So I found this woman who is just starting to channel in public, who lived not too far from me. And I went for a reading first, and I felt that the information that I was getting from the beings that she channeled resonated with what I had experienced. And I said, oh, this is great. I'll be back, and so then she started doing classes. And so I took channeled classes for about 5 years off and on. And she channeled this group that they collectively called Orion. And to this day, I consider Orions my very dear friends. And I can kind of talk to them myself now, but they really helped me put that experience into perspective and helped me to figure out how to move forward. I mean, I kind of hit rock bottom one time when I was talking to him, and I said, I feel like I'm on a raft in the middle of the ocean and I can't see land in any direction, and I don't even know which way to paddle. And so I'm waiting for the big, okay, here's what you do, right? They go, yes, that's exactly how you feel. It's like, oh, come on. And I said, so what do I do? I just feel freaked out here because it's like I don't know who I am anymore. And they said, well, you're on a raft in the middle of the ocean. It's like, learn to enjoy being on a raft. And I remember I was mad. And I would bitch him out and everything. I would swear, and all the other people in the class would sort of like, oh, you can't talk to them like that, but they didn't care. But when I thought about it, it's like, that's it. It's like, let go of the resistance of being on, you're busy defining your experience in a negative way. It's like, let go of that and just say, oh, I'm on a raft in the ocean. Isn't this nice? Isn't it nice to just float? But they also said, what you're going to do is you need to find out who you are now, because in the past you were always who everyone else wanted you to be. And you're going to do that as if you're building a mosaic, and you're just going to try different things. You try this, I don't like it, throw it away. You try this, oh, I like it. You put that on your mosaic. Try something else. And as you keep going through this, if something happens to you, how do I really feel about that? As you get more in touch with who you are inside, you'll be putting these pieces in this mosaic. And before long, at the beginning, it'll feel like it takes forever, but before long, really, you'll look down and you'll see the picture of who you are.
Yeah.
And I, when I coach people, I use that example and say, I know exactly how that feels, in my own version of it.
Yeah.
This is what I was told, so I'm going to pass it along to you, and I'm going to tell you how it worked out for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I had a similar experience where I also went to see a guy who channeled, and he actually drew a picture of my guide while he was talking to me.
Oh, nice.
And you know what he said? He said, you're in the void. And I said, yes, I'm in the void. And he said, that's how you find yourself, is you go into the void. But it wasn't helpful at the time, I'll be honest. I didn't feel very happy with the outcome. But on another note, you said you're a healer, right? You've been that through lifetimes. is that part of your soul task, do you think, or who you are as a soul, or is it something that you've just chosen to have as a role in this earth plane?
I think teacher healer is kind of my essence,
Yeah.
with like a sidelight on writer and scribe. Those kind of, being a teacher and a healer through writing and scribing or whatever. Those seem to be things that I have carried through in one way or another, based on that review of all my past lives. It seemed like I did some form of those things, in every life.
Yeah. Yeah. So have you met any of your other soul group on this earth, or in this lifetime that you recognize?
Oh yeah. Well, and I think, we travel in packs, even the people, I always say the people who gave me the hardest time in this life were probably my best friends on the other side, because who else are you going to trust to do the mean things? Because you asked them to, who's going to love you enough? Just, like Judas and Jesus. Who was Jesus going to ask? You have to betray me. I really need you to betray me. Now, who are you going to trust to do that? Your best friend. It's the only one. So I don't always recognize it in the moment when they're being mean to me, mind you. But in retrospect, it's like, yeah, I probably asked them to do that. But I think we do travel in these groups of people. I have a dear friend that we became good friends in like 1968. And to this day, we're best friends. And, to me, she's like my soulmate in a way. I mean, your soulmate doesn't necessarily mean, oh, that's the man I'm going to marry and we'll live happily ever after. It's someone from your soul group who is so close to you, and I can just see it in my head that, they were sending out the call. It's like, who wants to go down to earth right now and be there for the big shift? And we're like, we will. And we were like, I'll go if you'll go. And it's like, okay, let's do it, and I know we planned it, that we would, find each other and go through this journey together. And, she's married and has kids and, her own life and everything. It's not like that kind of a partnership, but we're best friends and we're always there for each other. And there are other people in my life too. I think you can, if you're sensitive to energy, you can feel it when you meet somebody that's part of your soul group, because there's that recognition. Now, unfortunately, at first I used to feel like that meant this is the one, Well, it always turned out that it was not the one. Thank you very much. It was the one who was going to teach me a hard lesson, So I know that if I have that feeling with somebody I first meet, it's like, okay, just stand back. Let's take this slowly and not jump into what we think this is supposed to be, because that just might be a member of your soul family who said, yeah, you asked me to do this, honey, smack,
You know what? It feels like when you're giving birth, you have contractions, and the closer to giving birth, the more intense they become, and the closer they come. And it feels like that when you're in toxic relationships, or when you're awakening your soul. It's like it starts off slow, and then it just becomes too much, and eventually you think, can you just slow it down a bit, calm down?
Yeah, because you're kind of birthing yourself in an awakening.
Yeah.
In a way. Yeah. But, humans really can learn to grow and learn other than through suffering if they decide. There's this office supply place that has an ad that has an easy button. And it just says easy on it, and you can hit the button. And I'm like, I'm getting one of those. And now it's like, I'm hitting the easy button. Everything comes easy now. I learned through ease. Everything is easy. And I smack that button. And it's like, this is what I'm creating now. I am creating ease in my life, and I can still learn and grow, but I don't have to suffer.
Yeah. No, I love that, because for some reason we seem to think that we should.
Yeah.
We have to do it the hard way. We have to, and I know our brains like shortcuts, but I'm not talking about shortcuts to doing certain things. I'm just talking about life. Why make it so difficult?
I think it's the Puritan influence. Life is suffering. It's like, maybe for you, I'm not doing it anymore. It's like, no.
I always have a theory. I want to get it. I want to grow as much as I can, so I don't have to go through this again. Like, I just don't want to have to start again from scratch. I mean,
we never start from scratch.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever we learn in this life, we carry it to the next one. So we don't start from scratch. We start from there,
Yeah. What I mean is that veil of forgetfulness hits you. And then if you didn't learn and you have to start again, you have to go through all those things that you went through before because you didn't learn from it.
Well, we learned something. We might not have mastery. I also think that we're raising the vibration of humanity and the planet enough that, I certainly would not come again under these circumstances. Trust me on that. But I think we're raising the vibration enough that we might actually decide, I want to go back because now I can actually enjoy myself on planet Earth because the vibration is high enough and we don't have all of this nasty stuff. Because when you reach a certain vibration, the nasty stuff can't reach you anymore.
Yeah, I think it is going to happen, without a doubt. Yeah. In which case, I'll sign up for that.
Yes, I will sign up for that. I'll see you then.
Yeah, I'll see you then. So tell me, I know that when people go to the other side, no one they meet is an accident, and everything they experience is very particular to them. So those tall beings, I'll call them giants, but did you know them before? Were you part of did you live with them?
Well, they are, sometimes I say who they were and sometimes I don't. It took me 5 years after my NDE before I allowed myself to understand that they were lion people.
Okay, yeah.
Because in 1985, anybody who believed in ETs, I thought was an idiot. And, that was just totally out of my wheelhouse. It's like, no, can't go there. And I kind of got bombarded for 5 years with lions. Everybody I knew started giving me lion jewelry, lion books, lion pictures, lion statues. It was like, what the heck is going on here? And I walked into a shop and I saw this, it was a card there were cards based on the zodiac signs, and this was for Leo, and it was a lion person. And it's the head of a lion with hands. And I saw that and my knees buckled and I went right down on the floor and I went, oh my God, that's who they were.
Wow.
And I was like instantly back in that gazebo, and it was like somebody pulled white sheets off these people and they're like, whoa, they're all lion people. Well, but I even knew at the time in the NDE that they were old friends and old counselors. And they were my council of 12. They helped me to set up this lifetime, to design it. And the most fascinating thing they said to me was, we are more you are more kin to us than you are to those people that you saw. I'm like, okay, I can deal with that later. That took another couple of years to wrap my head around the idea that, oh, I might actually be a lion person, but I'm masquerading as a human being. Why would I do that? But for all intents and purposes now, in this life, I am a human being, but I come from there.
Yeah, well, it's amazing. So,
yeah, and it's been wonderful because they are ever present with me, and as I have become more able to let go of control and ego and mind, I've been able to work more closely with them. So even when I'm giving a presentation or doing a podcast or working with a client or something, they feed me some lines or they'll say, oh, talk about this, and I'll like, I never talk about that. But then I talk about it and the person says, oh my God, I can't believe you brought that up. And it's like in my head, I would never know to talk about X, Y, or Z. But, I get this little, hey, say this. It's like, all right, and I say it, and then I find out why I needed to say it. So it's, and when I do writing, it's half automatic writing. It's a collaboration, but it's them and me. I just have to do the manual labor. So it's great. I'm never alone, and they laugh at me a lot and I tell them to go away, stuff like that. We have a good relationship.
Well, if you're more kin to them, then you'd understand them and they'd be able to joke with you.
Yes.
Did you always have such a wicked sense of humor, or did that come after?
I think I always had it. I directed it into sarcasm before, and for a while there, there were many years where I felt like I had completely lost my sense of humor because I wasn't sarcastic anymore.
Uh-huh.
And I guess finally I've allowed myself to let my humor out again, feeling that I won't do harm, Yeah. Because to me,
and I've noticed. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I've noticed culturally how humor differs in different cultures.
Oh, yes.
And I know specifically American humor tends to be that sarcasm aimed at somebody else's expense.
Yes.
And I find that hard to understand and sympathize with, because for me, that's harsh. Yeah.
It is. I grew up with that. I've gone every once in a while, they have a show on TV that's like the old comedians from the 50s and 60s. And I watch it and it's painful because that was all of it. It was always at somebody else's expense. And the humor I grew up with in my household was always humor at somebody else's expense. And if you said something, or that's mean, oh, you're just too sensitive. It's like, no, you're just mean. It's like, but it comes from insecurity. If you're not insecure, you don't have to be a bully. If you're not insecure, you don't have to be sarcastic, and you don't have to make jokes at other people's expense, because you don't have to build yourself up by putting other people down. And the prevalence of sarcasm in the American culture just shows me how dysfunctional and self-loathing most Americans really are. And which is, one of my big things the last 5 years or so is the importance of learning to love yourself. Because as I have learned to love myself, and it doesn't happen, overnight, it's a process, is that as you learn to accept yourself with all of your perceived flaws and just embrace them because they're part of you. They're not the parts you love particularly, but they're part of you. Then you can accept other people the way they are and not judge them so harshly. And as you learn to forgive yourself and realize that you just were doing the best you could at the time, then you can forgive other people because you realize they're just doing the best they can at the time. So you're not holding yourself and everybody else up to that perfection standard that nobody can ever reach. And you become more compassionate and more loving and forgiving, not only with yourself, but with other people. And you don't have to build yourself up that way.
Yep.
And, so I just look around and it's like, oh my God, how are all of these people going to grow out of this? But if I did it, everybody can.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've gone from temping to building up your mosaic.
Yeah, I built my mosaic.
To being now a healer full time. That's what you're doing now?
Mm-hmm. In between, I was a writer-editor for a government organization for 25 years. Yeah. And I started doing reconnective healing in 2005 and hoping that I could generate enough income to quit my day job, but that didn't happen. So I had to wait till I could actually retire. And so now I took courses in life coaching. And so I do reconnective healing and I also do life coaching.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what I find fascinating is that now more than ever, people are going through such uncertainty. All these emotions are being stirred up. They don't know which way to turn. And there's all these people available, and they're like, no, I can't afford it. Or, no, I don't have the time. Or, no, I'm not sure, And it just astounds me that they cannot see the value of how their life will be different, like so different, if they just follow that inner niggly feeling that says, this is what's missing.
Right.
It's a coming self. And that's what it's about. It's not about what are you going to teach me? It's how are you going to help open the way for me to find me?
Exactly. It's about empowering them. It's not. And especially now in the new energies, it's like that the whole idea of I am going to heal you. I mean, that was always kind of arrogant, but it's much more now about I can help you heal yourself.
Yeah. And you've been there.
Yeah.
You've done all the work.
Exactly.
You know what it takes. And you can't skip the steps.
You cannot. But you also have to be ready. And I think those people who are like, well, I just can't afford it. It's like, okay, can you afford to go out and have a drink, every couple of nights? Then you can afford it. Your priorities aren't there yet. And I think a lot of it's resistance. People are afraid, they resist change, even if not changing if they know that not changing isn't good for them. The current situation is not good for them. They're not happy, but they're terrified of change because change is always dangerous and terrifying. And again, it's the resistance. And we've been taught that, and it's tribal. It's like, that fear of the unknown protected us from all kinds of predators for a long time. But, in recent history, and I'm talking like 100 years, people have used that the tribalism and the fear of the unknown to manipulate us, to keep us in fear, because you can't control a bunch of people who know that they are divine, powerful creators.
No, absolutely.
And, So it's like, oh no, you can't possibly leave that abuser because you'll never have enough money, or wah 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 wah. And then we believe it because we're terrified, especially women who still only make like what 70 cents on the dollar as compared to what men do. But yeah, we get terrified and oh, it's not so bad, and then we decide not to change. Changing is scary. Changing is getting on that raft and floating out into the middle of the ocean, and you don't know where you're going. And you can just pray that you're going to end up in a nice place.
You know what I think it is? I think it's because we came into this body and went, oh, we can't go back. I'm not doing that again. Last time I threw myself into something, look where I found myself.
There's that.
Yeah. So where can people get hold of you?
Oh, I have a website that's LionMagic, LionMagic.com. And I have,
that makes sense.
If people are interested in my NDE, I always post a link to all of my podcasts. So I have a whole bunch now. And you can find out, I post all the stuff that I write. I just finished submitting an article of predictions for the Sedona Journal of Emergence that's going to be published in the November issue, predictions for 2025. And so I post all of those past articles are there, and I do a newsletter for free. It kind of comes out when the Lion people tell me it's time to write a newsletter. So it's periodically. It's about 4 times a year, so you're not getting a zillion emails from me. And they're pretty long, so it's kind of a commitment to read. But I do like an overview of pretty much why does everything seem so horrible out there, and how are we going to get through this? And, why is this happening? And I think it just to know that, there's a reason for all of this stuff. And if we can just go, try to go with the energies instead of fighting them, things will be better. So it's just free to sign up on my website. And then you can find out information about my coaching and my reconnective healing. And I have a book that I wrote. It's called The Search for the Crystal Key. And it's a fantasy novel, but it has most of the stuff that I learned about how life works put into this fantasy novel, because in 1985, people weren't writing books about, I had an NDE and this is what happened. So that was my way of documenting what I learned, was in this fantasy novel.
That sounds awesome. Well, I'll get hold of that book in the meantime. Can you share one of your predictions for 2025?
Well, 2025, I predicted that 2024 was going to be like a roller coaster ride, and many shocking and sudden unexpected events. And I was right. So 2025, I believe it's going to be easier, but there will be many unexpected things continuing, not necessarily bad things. That's 2025 is going to be a humdinger, because we have 2 major outer planets changing sign. And we just had, so in November 18th of this year, Pluto, which has been in Capricorn since 2008, will finally, hallelujah, move into Aquarius for the next 20 years or so. So that will have just completely finalized its move into Aquarius when we start 2025. in March, we have Neptune finally moving out of Pisces into Aries. Now, Neptune brings idealism and spirituality, which is one of the reasons we've had this big influx of people being interested in these kinds of things. But it also throws a fog over everybody. So it's hard to discern what's true. We've had lots of misinformation and disinformation, cult-like behavior. That's all Neptune and Pisces. It's like, okay, I will be glad when you get out of there. So it'll be moving into Aries. And Aries is a much more direct, Aries will cut through the fog. And then in July, we have Uranus moving out of Taurus into Gemini. Now, the interesting thing, so the outer planets affect us on deep unconscious levels. So it's not like it's going to move into a sign and you're going to go, oh my God, everything's different. It's not going to happen that way. It comes organically from inside the people. And they have many, many good parts of all of these shifts. But it's interesting to note that there was a major war that went on with each of these new placements. The Civil War in the United States started the day after Neptune moved into Aries in 1861. Wow. When Pluto was in Capricorn the first time, we had the American Revolution. Then when it moved into Aquarius, they had the French Revolution. When Uranus moved into Gemini, I think that was like sort of the middle of World War II. So there is, and in a couple of those, well, Pluto and Aquarius, and then Uranus itself going into Gemini, that's that Uranian unexpected, out of the blue things that you never saw coming. Biden stepping down from being a candidate, that is so Uranus. It's like, what the heck? It's like, where did that come from? You never thought that would come. That's Aquarius energy, and that's Uranus energy, because Aquarius is ruled by Uranus. So with that energy being so strong in 2025, there will continue to be unexpected things. It doesn't, and there will probably be some contention, because there is that kind of, I call it a whiff. There's a whiff of war underneath of war energy. But it doesn't have to erupt in war. It can just be, people are going to be contentious because they're dealing with all of these new energies and they don't know what to do with them. They don't know what they mean. So it will have its difficulties, but I think the trajectory since the end of June, really, you could feel a wave of fresh energy move in this past June, and it's going to keep going in that trajectory. So I believe, what I foresee is that things are now on a corrective course. The changes that need to be made won't happen overnight, and there might be some arguments over, what are we going to change and how are we going to change it? But we will be heading probably pretty swiftly in the direction we all want to move in. So overall, 2025 will be a very good year.
Well, that is good news.
with some caveats,
Well, I mean, you can't have everything going easy,
right,
all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And people have, even when people want the same things, they can have different ideas of how to achieve that.
Yeah.
And so, there will be some arguments, but I do believe that it's kind of like, I likened it to the Titanic has turned. and we're not going to hit the iceberg this time.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I'm very excited about what's going on, and in an optimistic way. So, a lot of people think I'm crazy, but it's like, can't you feel it? It's like in the air that things are getting better. You can feel it getting better every day if you pay attention.
Yeah.
And that's going to keep going in 2025.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. And it was great meeting you. It was great talking to you. Before we go, do you have a message for our audience?
Well, I guess I have two. I have two messages. Just simmer down and breathe. Because no matter how crazy it is out there, let the world take care of itself, because it will. And just worry about your own life. I mean, unless you're like an ambassador to Ukraine or something, then worry about that. But if you don't have any way of making a direct impact on a situation in the world that is, tearing your heart out, don't focus on it. Send it light. If you can't do anything about it, it's so important to figure out where can you have an impact and where can you not have an impact, and focus where you can have an impact, because that empowers you, and that's the only place you have power. And work on self-love, because self-love is not selfish. It's recognizing your own worth and recognizing that you deserve to be treated well. And when you start to love yourself, you will automatically walk away from toxic situations. You will teach people how to treat you. And that's how the world gets better, when we each start treating each other with more respect and more love. But it starts with recognizing that we deserve love. God loves us. There's no judgment. There's nothing else. God only loves us. So why can't we love ourselves? And then it's easier to love other people. And the world would be a lot better if we could all stop being so insecure and self-loathing and love ourselves and each other without as much judgment. So yeah. I guess those are my two messages. It's getting better. It really is. It's getting better.
Double messages are great. And I love both of them. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And thank you for being you. And I will post all your links in the description. And if people want to get hold of you, then they can.
I appreciate that.